The night everything changed began with a storm, the kind that shakes the windows and rattles the bones. I was sitting alone in my dimly lit apartment in Portland, Oregon, staring at the half-empty mug on the table, feeling like life had been quietly slipping through my fingers for years. I had lost a relationship, lost my sense of purpose, and if I was being completely honest, slowly losing myself too. I never imagined that a single sentence, spoken with trembling hope, would pull me back from the edge. I never imagined I would hear a woman look straight into my eyes and say the words that shook something deep inside me. I want a baby. Can you help? And I definitely never imagined that my stunned whisper in response would flip my entire world upside down. I'm going to be a father? If you believe in kindness, hope, and second chances, make sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe to the channel. It truly helps us grow and bring more stories to you. Her name was Hannah, a woman I had known for years but had never really seen until that moment. We met at church long before life hardened both of us. She used to volunteer at the community center where I worked part-time, teaching little kids how to paint and helping the elderly with grocery deliveries. She was sunshine disguised as a human being, always laughing, always lifting others. But time didn't spare her either. She battled heartbreak, a medical diagnosis that made her chances of conceiving uncertain, and a series of relationships that left her feeling unwanted, unseen, and unbearably alone. We reconnected out of nowhere. I had gone back to that same church after months away, hoping to find something to anchor myself. There she was, older, quieter, more fragile around the eyes, but still with that soft glow that could calm a room. We talked for hours that first day, catching up on where life had taken us, both pretending we weren't broken in different places. Over the next few weeks, we met for coffee, walks by the river, and late evening talks in the community center parking lot. It was innocent. It was healing. It was two people helping each other breathe again. Then came the night that would change everything. I had invited her over because she had seemed unusually quiet the day before. When she arrived, soaked from the storm, clutching her coat tightly around her body, I knew something was wrong. She sat on my couch, her hands trembling, her gaze fixed on the floor. And then she said it, words that felt like they had been trapped inside her chest for far too long. She told me about her last doctor visit, about how her chances of ever becoming a mother were slipping by the minute. She told me she had prayed for a sign, prayed for strength, prayed for someone who wouldn't judge her or laugh at her dream. And then, voice cracking, she said the sentence that would echo in my mind forever. I want a baby. Can you help? I didn't know what I felt first, shock, fear, disbelief, or something deeper and far more terrifying, hope. From that night forward, the world didn't shift suddenly. It moved softly, like a whisper guiding two lost souls towards something bigger than themselves. We spent days talking about it, long emotional nights where she cried into her hands and I sat beside her, trying to make sense of what she was asking and what I was feeling. It wasn't a casual request. It wasn't two lonely people trying to fill a void. It was her heart, bruised and trembling, offering me a small piece of faith. And somewhere inside all my doubts and flaws, something answered. She didn't want anything from me that wasn't freely chosen. Not commitment, not sacrifice, not promises I couldn't keep. She said she only wanted honesty, clarity, and the chance to try for a miracle before time took the option away from her forever. The more we talked, the more I realized how deeply her desire came from love. Not the romantic kind, though I felt something shifting between us, but the love. Of wanting a piece of yourself to protect, nurture, and guide. The love of wanting family in a world that keeps taking things away. As the weeks passed, our bond grew. I started looking at her differently. Not as the friend I once knew, but as someone whose strength humbled me. She looked at me differently, too, not as the man who lost his way, but as someone she saw a future in, even if that future frightened both of us. The first big challenge came when people around us started noticing. Portland wasn't a small town, but the church community definitely acted like one. Rumors started spreading. Some said we were rushing, some said we were crazy, some whispered that I wasn't father material, that I had no direction, no stability, no long-term career. Their words cut deeper than I let on. I began questioning myself late at night, wondering if I was enough for the kind of responsibility she was asking me to take on, wondering if I could be the father I never had. But Hannah always saw right through me. One evening, as we stood by the riverbank watching the sun sink behind the steel bridge, she touched my arm gently and whispered that she believed in me. She said I had more heart than anyone she knew, more goodness than I could see in myself, and for the first time in years I felt something inside me flicker. Courage, maybe, or purpose. Just when we finally started planning the next steps, life threw another blow. Hannah collapsed at work. I got the call while I was at the grocery store. I dropped everything and raced to the hospital, arriving just as they were wheeling her to a room. The doctor said it was stress, exhaustion, and complications from her medical condition. Her body was struggling more than she had admitted. And as I held her hand while she slept, tubes attached to her arms, monitors beeping softly, I felt a wave of fear so sharp it nearly buckled me. I realized then that it wasn't just about helping her have a baby anymore. It was about her, protecting her, supporting her, loving her, whether she ever asked for it outright or not. When she woke up, the first thing she whispered, voice barely audible, was, "I'm sorry." But the look in her eyes told me she wasn't apologizing for the collapse. She was apologizing for being afraid, for needing help, for wanting something she worried I might regret. I held her hand, squeezing it gently, and told her she didn't need to apologize for being human. I told her she mattered. I told her that whatever came next, I was here that night, marked the turning point. We didn't rush anything. We didn't make impulsive decisions. Instead, we rebuilt slowly, emotionally, physically, spiritually. She spent weeks recovering, and I took time off work to be with her. We talked about everything, our fears, our hopes, our pasts, the family we wished we'd had. I learned about her childhood dreams, her heartbreaks, the mistakes she regretted, and the prayers she whispered in the dark. She learned about the father who abandoned me, the insecurities I carried, and the silent promise I had made to myself to be better than the man who walked away from me. Somewhere in those quiet weeks, between hospital meals and late-night conversations, our connection deepened into something undeniable. We didn't label it, we didn't rush it, but it was real, it was growing, and it was exactly the thing both of us had been missing. By the time her strength returned, the decision felt less like a question and more like a step forward, together. And the day we officially decided to try for a baby wasn't dramatic or loud. It was simple, warm, and filled with the kind of peace that comes when two people finally stop running from what their hearts have been quietly choosing all along. Months passed, and life shifted. I got a better job, something stable with decent pay, and for the first time, I started saving money with intention. She grew healthier, happier, and more grounded than I had ever seen her. Our bond became the foundation neither of us had ever had. And slowly, beautifully, something started to bloom between us that felt bigger than hope. The day the pregnancy test turned positive, Hannah fell to her knees, crying so hard she couldn't breathe. I knelt beside her, pulling her into my arms, and for a long time neither of us spoke. We just held each other and let the moment sink in. I realized then I wanted this, not out of obligation, not out of pity, but because somewhere along the journey I had fallen for her strength, for her gentleness, for the way she believed in me when I barely believed in myself. And when I whispered, "I'm going to be a father," it wasn't shock anymore. It was awe. It was gratitude. It was the feeling of receiving a gift I didn't know I deserved. The months that followed were filled with challenges, doctor visits, nights of worry, financial planning, and moments of fear so sharp they nearly stole our breath. But there were also nights lying on the couch with her head on my chest, feeling the tiny kicks beneath her hand, dreaming of names and imagining a future that felt more real every day. The night she went into labor was quiet, almost peaceful. I drove her to the hospital with trembling hands, thinking of everything we had gone through to reach this moment. Hours later, when I held our tiny daughter in my arms, a little girl with soft hair and the calmest eyes I had ever seen, I felt something break wide open inside me. The world went silent. My heart didn't. I wasn't just helping someone with their dream. I was part of a family, ours. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps us bring more emotional, inspiring stories to the world.